All right, welcome back to another tutorial video. In the last video, we spent some time setting up styled components and we set up a template for all of our pages to follow so that we can have some navigation that is easily reusable between pages. In this video, we're going to improve our navigation a little bit because it still has some quirks. We're going to improve the breadcrumb trail at the top, I think. And then I think after that, we might start, if we get to it, we might start improving or adding some more fields to our school model, because right now we just have a name, so it feels kind of finicky just filling in a name field. So we'll get some more fields in there, maybe some drop downs, maybe some foreign keys and stuff like that. If I get to all that in this video, probably not, but that's the direction. So to start, so last time, if I make this full screen real quick, so you can click between these and it changes the content as you can see when I'm clicking them. But the active state of this menu bar is like not being saved. It's still saying it's schools no matter what I do. So we want to get that active state and set it every single time the page is re-rendered. So to start, the way we can check the active state is by matching the URL against the location that matches that state. Does that make sense? So React, get the URL path. Is that really? Rather than using kind of the default or the built-in window location, I'm going to use, I think, is it use, I think it's use location I want. We need to do some code organization at some point too. But so every time a basic page is re-rendered, I'm not even going to put this in a method because it's going to run every single time the page loads. Is the default state is going to, oh, we might need to do a method actually. Okay, let's do it. We'll just put in a use effect. So every time the page loads, we're going to get the path. So if that's going to be like location path name, perfect. And we're going to compare that against our items list. So we'll do something like this essentially, where we're looking for an item where the item location equals location.path name. And then if that item is defined, we're going to set it. So default state, set default state. Default state, I guess, can be 1. So that's our keys right here. And then here, set default state to that item dot key. It's key, right? Argument of type key and perhaps undefined. It's not undefined now. How would that be undefined if item is not equal to undefined? Okay, it's going to take this, and then the default we'll just put in there. I'm just going to declare that this is a menu item. It's not undefined. Okay. If item is not equal to undefined, then it should have a key. Oh, is it saying the key might be undefined? I think key is a required. Oh, maybe it isn't. And the item has a key. It's not equal to undefined. For optional keychain. Oh, okay. Argument to type key is not assignable to type parameter. Oh, it's type key. What is type key? String or number. What? Why? Um, can I do string or number for the type on this? Somewhere else we set the type on the use state, right? Oh, it's right after use state. Okay. So can we take this and say that the type of this is string or number? Okay, and then it works. Why would they make it string or number? I guess that's fine. But in general, I like working with opinionated tools that just tell me what to do rather than giving options, if that makes sense. But now we have default state, string or number. Okay, let's just cast the is it string? We'll cast whatever we get to a string, and it might be a number. So now if we refresh this, it should be looking at the path. Oh, it almost isn't working there. Let's see if it's even finding it. Are we finding an item right here? And this location path name, is that even the value we want? Open up our inspector so we can see our console logs. Close all that, refresh. Slash schools. Okay, so we're finding the object, and then we're setting the default state to the key. Actually, instead of doing that, we should just cast it here, or cast it here to string, right? Perfect. And then defaults should be getting set. See, it doesn't work sometimes. If I go to, let's try and reproduce it and see what the console is. So schools works, home works. We removed our console logs. Default state. And then we don't need the string down here. Oops. Okay, so we click schools. Maybe this isn't the best way to do this. Let's take a look at the menu and see if maybe there's maybe a better prop than default state, like maybe active state. Default, expand. Oh, selected keys. Array with the keys of currently selected menu items. That's probably way better. Now if we refresh, there we go. It feels a little bit weird. You can see like when I click that, it sort of flickers for a second, but we're gonna ignore it for now and maybe we'll come back to it. So we have that working, and then next step, let's go over to this create school form, and let's make it vertical. I'm not really liking these inline labels, and you can actually just make forms vertical. So create school. We go to form, And let's just go to the props. Tons of options. I recommend looking at the props whenever you're looking at these things. There's like just so many. Here we go. Layout equals vertical. Perfect. And I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know why the button is in the middle, but okay. So like a max width on forms. On finish, wrapper, size. There isn't even a default. Let's just try medium. Or is it, was it middle or medium? Middle? Why? Okay. I didn't notice a change. What does small look like? Oh, it's the field sizes. It's not the width of the container. Okay. Where's the example for those forms? I know there was an example I was looking at. I could probably just okay, yeah, there's the size. I kind of like optional more. What we'll probably do is create a form how we want it set up, and then we'll reuse like our form component, which is set up from ND, so that we don't like so that you get the consistency. Yeah, I don't know why the button's way down there on ours. Is our button within our form? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's go back to the backend and let's add some new fields to schools, and then we'll start using some of those more like advanced fields, really. So if we go to our models file, which is where we store our like table definitions, you can see we just have a name there. School attributes. Let's just get some examples so I don't have to think too hard. Okay. Uh, let's just do that was awful. Let's do category, which is going to be a choice field. So like you might have high schools or middle schools or elementary schools. And then I'm also going to do district, which is going to be a foreign key. And foreign keys have to refer to, foreign keys are like relationships to other tables. So that means this needs to be another table, and this foreign key is going to be district. And districts, let's say, are also going to have a name. And we're going to give them a code as well, just for fun. And we can just add the string method. Okay, so now we can reference this in the foreign key. But maybe let's finish the category. So category is going to be those choices, and we can define those choices rather than just making it kind of like an unboundless field. So let's look at an example. I know the syntax has changed a few times, or the preferred syntax. Okay, so here we are. Let's just copy the whole thing. So generally they encourage you to define the choices within the class. High school category. So maybe there is elementary, high school, middle school. We'll change the order of those just for sequential purposes. And let's just start with that. Drop those, put this in here, put this in here, put this in here. These names, this is the value that will be stored, and this is like your display value. You can see here they did a character field of max length 2, so this is what's getting stored in the database, but Django allows you to have a display value as well. Let me think. Yeah, we can just do a character field as well. I'm gonna make it length 4 though. Let's just take this, copy it into our categories. Length 4, just to add a bit more room there. Because you'll see these values, like if you're like working with a database, you want them to make some sense. Sometimes I've done like integer values, which are really hard to interpret because you just see like a number. But at least with like 4 letters, you'll get a little bit of a hint about what that value might represent. So we're going to do that. And then we can drop this. Okay. And we're using this, and the default is going to be elementary, sure. Okay, and then let's finish this foreign key. So there are a variety of attributes you can add to a foreign key. And there's a few recommended ones that I can't remember the exact syntax for. On delete is, I think, required, and then related name is important. So district is our foreign key. On delete refers to if the district is deleted, what should happen to the school. So if the district is deleted, if a whole district is deleted, I'm going to leave it on cascade, which means all schools in the district would be deleted as well. You can also do protect, which would say you can't delete that district. Actually, let's do that protect. And you can also do set null. So if a district was deleted, the schools would just float in space and they wouldn't be attached to a district. Related name is how you refer to schools from district. So you have a district, and you might, from district, you say district.schools. I think that makes a lot of sense. There is a default name, but I really like specifying that. Okay, so we've just added a new table with 2 fields. We've added 2 more fields to our school. Let's modify our database. So if you've been here, it's been a little while since we've done this, so if you forget, that is okay. But you want to change into your Django project. Make sure you have your environment running. Mine's in a different folder. So make sure you activate your virtual environment. Go back to the folder. And if we run python manage.py make migrations, what that does is it looks at our database and compares it to the, actually, I don't know what it actually does, but it will create a text file that says this is how the database should be modified, and then we'll run that against our database and actually modify it. So it's impossible to add a non-nullable field district to school without specifying a default. So in this scenario, whenever you, let's say you already have 2 schools in our database, and we already have like 5 schools. If they don't, well, they don't belong in a district because they've never had a district. So we need to decide what happens to that district field on schools we already have. And districts probably shouldn't, or schools probably shouldn't be outside a district. I think they'd all have a district. So what we'll do is we're going to provide a one-off default. And there's a few ways you can handle this. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make an empty migration, and we're going to do some manual migration work, which is like more advanced than I intended. What app are we working in? We're working in an example app. So you can create an empty migration and then like write your own code. Oh, wait, let me think. I don't want to allow district to be null on schools. So we need to be able to populate existing schools with a district, which means we need a district. So what I'm going to do is we're going to comment out these fields like that. I'm going to delete that file I just created. And we're going to run make migrations. And all it's going to see is that new district model, which doesn't have any issues. And then what we can do is we can go into this and we can actually run our own code. So you can do migrations. This is going to create the table in the database, and then we can run our own migration, which, let's need to check the syntax on this, will allow us to create a district that we can use as the default. Run Python. Okay, I think this is an example here. When you run Python, there is two parameters you can pass. One is to make the migration move forward, and it's possible, I've never done it, but it's possible to undo a migration, and the reverse function is what will happen if you undo this. So we'll add one, but and it's good practice, but the majority of the time, if you do have to reverse things, you can look at other options likely. So we'll just take their formatted things. You're never supposed to refer to the models directly in here. You're supposed to use apps get model. So from the example app, we want the district model we just created. And yeah, if you import it, it said there, if you import it, you're going to be using the wrong version. So if we worked in this project for a while and suddenly the district had 10 fields, if we imported district directly in here, this migration, the second migration to ever run in our app, would be using the district model, which is like a year in the future. But all we're going to do is we're going to create a district with a name to Caribou, and the code is going to be Gara or something like that. All right. And just for fun, it won't even run. We're not even going to use it. But in the reverse, if we ever reverse this, we'd probably want to delete all, delete get, where the name equals Caribou and the code equals Kari, and we'd want to delete it so that we can create it again if we need to run the migration again. So there we go. Now, if we go back to our editor and we run make migrations again, it's going to say, what do you want as a default for schools? What district do you want to use for schools? And now we can provide a one-off default rather than a continuous default. So this is just going to run for all schools we already have. Otherwise, you would require a district to create a school. And a one-off default, I think, can you refer to, I think if I do one, this is kind of cheeky and I'm not sure if it's better practice, but one would be refer to the first district in the database, and we just added district, so it's relatively safe to do this. And it will just look for that first district which we just created, and it will run it. So now we've got two migration files, And if we want to migrate, it'll modify our database. So it created a district table, it created its first district, and then we added that district field to schools, and we populated it with 1, which is equal to the district we just created. So that's awesome. You can't see any of it yet because we need to still decide to send that data to the front end, but it is there. One cool thing we can try right away, though, is if we go to create school and we try and create a new school, it'll likely error out, and we don't have any error handling, so you can't tell, but that's an opportunity to work on that. But this 500 is going to say, like, you need a district ID because it's not null, and it would also probably say you need a category. No, it won't, because we have a default on it. But Django comes in with these like built-in operations or validation to ensure you're not like creating bad data, and it's all like from your models that you define. Okay. So next steps. This form is still so ugly and so wide. Is there a way to? I'll look at it later on. You can make it smaller. But next steps. Let's add. Okay, there's a lot to actually get to this, but next steps, we want to add our new fields to this school form so that we can make more complex schools. So we need a category dropdown for elementary, middle, and high schools, and then we need a district selector for all of the districts in our database. For the districts, we need to pull those districts from our API so that we can show them in a dropdown. And for the dropdown with the 3 options, we need a way for our front-end app to know what constants are available. And I've done this in a few projects, but well, I've solved this problem in a few projects, but recently I've been thinking it might be a good idea to make an endpoint on the API where you can just say, like, give me all the constants and I'll refer to them. So we're going to do that. So let's just get to it. Close all these. We're going to create a new route. What's the syntax on this? Can I just blah, 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 blah. Okay, I forget the syntax for just like a basic URL. Okay, this is gonna be all view sets. I'm going to be using it with an API view. Okay. So if we go back to our URLs, we're going to create, these are all extended by API, so we don't need this slash API here. We're going to create a constants endpoint, and that is going to, maybe we should create the view first. So in views, I'm going to create a custom folder for, maybe a config folder, constants, config. Let's do config. And we're going to create an API view in here. Oops. API guide. Generic views, is that what I want? Yeah, here we go. So this allows us to just define like a really simple endpoint. We're going to have get requests only allowed on this endpoint. And when we go to this endpoint, we're going to pull in all of our constants and return them as data. So anyone can access this endpoint. It doesn't have sensitive information. It's just going to return an object with a status. Give me a few here, just fiddling status. There's a way to import for status. See status anywhere. There's even a search field somewhere. Responses, status. Where's the status list? Oops. There we go, from REST framework status, that's what I want. So we're going to pull in status, and this allows you to refer to 201 success, 200 success. We can use that instead of just like putting in the number 201. But here's what we want our data. So school categories is going to be some data, and the data from our example app, from our models, we can import our school model. And our school model has some choices on it called high school category. And if we just cast this to a dict, because they're always, choice fields are always two options, the value will be the key and the display value will be the string. Is there any white space? Okay. And that's our endpoint. And all this does is you make a GET request. Anyone can make it. Anyone can make it any number of times. You don't have to be authenticated. And it's just going to return you the options for all of our constants that are non-sensitive. So if we grab this, we can now, from example, views config import get constants. What am I doing? What am I doing? I don't think, oops, how am I doing this? All right, let's see if, I don't know what the naming convention is. I think it's singular. But if we go to our API now, let's just go to localhost /8000, which is your API, or your backend /API /constants. And we get nothing. Oh, cannot import name path from REST framework. Bum, 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 bum. I have an example with the URL here. Forget the syntax. Where do you import path from? You see any path examples? Path. Okay, let's just go to Django's documentation. Django URL is path. Where do you import that from? From Django URLs. That adds up. So we can import that, and we don't get paths from there. All right, is our backend running? Function has no attribute as view. That adds up. I think you can just do that. Backend is running. If we go to localhost 8000 /constants, API /constants, It doesn't exist. Probably because it's not defined back here. So we have our router, which gets our example router from, it gets this, but this is just like floating in space and doing nothing. So let's see how you're supposed to, let's go to the Django URL. Oh, it's right here. Django URLs. Django add app URLs to project. Okay, here we go. So back here, we can also do, I think that's all documentation. You can do path. This one's going to be /API as well, so they might have conflicts. I'm not sure how it's going to deal with that, but example app.urls should do it. API is still running. If we refresh now, you can see it is there. It does exist. Oh, and default permissions are, what was that? Cannot apply this on a view that does not set query set or have a get query set method. So is this where you get permission classes? I think so. We can set the permission classes on this to nothing. And that should just like open it up. Which isn't necessarily what you want to do, but for now it's fine. Has no attribute HTTP. Okay, yeah. Let's get a Django mod in our packages so that it can just like tell us what all the things are that we want. For like a DRF. I could have sworn there was something you could set up so that it would just tell me what these are. I think it's HTTP. I don't know. Let's see. DRF, Django REST Framework status codes. They have like a list of them. Here we go. Okay, we don't want anyone to. We don't want 201 because that's for created, and we didn't create anything. We just want 200. So now if we go here and we click refresh, there we are. So this is the object we get on the front end, which has our values and our, or yeah, like the values and then the display values. Awesome. So now maybe we can get a drop down over here. If I just search for drop down, do I get anything? Look at that. I want like a drop in input though, or drop down input. Okay. Maybe back and forth. They have drop down inputs. They surely do, right? They sort of have like these ones here. That's the only place that the drop down is mentioned on the page. These are number inputs. Oh, select. Drop down is, right, we want to select input, not a drop down, which is a very slight difference. Okay. So let's see what we got here. Got a whole bunch of stuff. So if we take that and we go back to our create school form, we can just add that here. Oh, let's grab those methods they had as well. We'll modify them, but grab those. And then we also need to import select from empty, and then we've got some type errors here. Missing return type. This will return nothing, and this will return nothing as well. All right, so now if we go back to our form, you can see here, we can select them. This is like not what we want though at all. We need actually like a labeled form as if it's part of a, or sorry, a labeled select as if it's part of a form. Which is weird that it's not like, oh, what is this? Is that a select? Oh my goodness. So make sure you read the docs before you do things. Okay, I don't actually think we need this method. It was just doing something. JS Excellent does not support attributes because it does not have a props property. We should also, I think that's probably because we haven't done this. We also have some organization to do. There's sort of things all over the place and it's getting kind of a bit chaotic. So in the next video, I might spend some time just cleaning up code. There we are. So now if we go to create school, we have a drop down with options that we don't need, but we will use them. The spacing is like incredibly large between this, so some fine tuning to do for sure, but we have our drop down now. The next step is going to be getting that request and populating this drop down with the school categories rather than gender. So yeah, I think I'm gonna pause there. Next video, we'll get those constants from the back end. We might set up Redux. Oh, okay, no. Next video, let's clean up our code. Yeah, we're gonna take a pause on this form because the code's getting a bit messy. And then after that, we'll get the constants from the back end. I may use Redux for that. Oh, actually, no, we're not going to use, well, yeah, I'm going to use Redux for that. So we're going to get Redux set up and get those constants for the dropdown, and I'll explain why then. And then we'll get the district request as well. So stay tuned, keep following along, and thanks for tuning in. Have a good one.